today's objectives are we're not going to review the last lesson because you can actually look at the last lesson in the video archive page. But we're going to learn some vocab surrounding geography and directions and a couple more common phrases. And most importantly, we're going to continue working with verbs that end in AR and how to conjugate them in the present to match the subject that we're hoping to speak about. So, for instance, we worked with hablar. Amy, go ahead and say hablar.
Hablar.
Welcome to class, Amy. Hablar is to
Thank you.
speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then how did you say I speak? So try I speak English.
Yo hablo inglés.
Really nice. Good. And then those things are not just things that we have to memorize for hablar. The rules that we learn in class 4, they apply to all verbs that end in AR. So we'll continue working with that today. Amy, show them. How do you say, do you speak Spanish?
¿Tú hablas español?
Really nice, Amy. That's exactly right. Yep. So good. We can see that the rules are solidifying themselves, and that is the priority, right? Good. Okay,
Yeah.
so this first page here for us is going to have to do with vocab. And the way that we want to do vocab is just Spanish, English, Spanish. This, for those that are watching the video after the class, is something where it's just a repetition exercise. However, I can say it's really helpful if you use this to make flashcards so that you're increasing your vocab. But because our course is 8 weeks long, we really have an emphasis on learning how to conjugate verbs because that's so important, and then also speaking in full sentences. So this vocab, it should be just be something that we breeze through, and Amy will give us a good demonstration of it. I'll say the Spanish, then Amy, your Spanish, English, Spanish. El
Okay.
mapa.
El mapa, the map, el mapa.
Good. Notice that that's a gender bender, right? A gender
Mm-hmm.
rule breaker. It ends in A, but it's a masculine word. And that, from as we know from lesson 1, is about 5% of the words. So we would never assume it. We just have to know the ones that deviate from the rules like this. El mapa. Let's try the next one. Amy, north is norte.
Norte, north, norte.
Good. South, sur.
Sur, south, sur.
Este is east.
Este, east, este.
Right. Now, Amy, what does it mean? Because este has another meaning. What does it mean if I say, este café es mío? Este café es mío.
This cafe is mine.
Right. Or
This
this
coffee is
coffee is
mine.
mine.
Coffee is mine.
Good. It shows me that you're in the Latina mindset. You say,
Mm-hmm.
this café is mine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, you're probably going to know in a sentence if you're saying this or east, right? So
Right.
keep in mind that este is this for all things masculine. And we covered that in one of the recent lessons. So if you go back and watch the video archive about this and that, you would find that there in the additional notes that have been published below each of the videos that we've recorded, right? That's the
Right.
stuff that kind of comes up outside of what we're seeing on the guide itself. The additional stuff, like, doesn't say that here on the guide, but it's there in our additional notes because it came up in the call. So every time we do one of these videos, it has what you're seeing on the screen, but it always inspires new learning and new dialogue, and that's all included in the additional notes. Sound good?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good. Let's continue on. How about the word west, oeste?
Oeste, west, oeste.
Yeah, Amy, because I think you know, how would you say the West Coast?
Costa oeste.
Yeah, la costa oeste.
La costa oeste.
How would you say the West Coast of Mexico?
La costa oeste de México.
Try this one just for fun. Don't be afraid to fail. And you guys at home, don't be afraid to fail. These are lessons. This is the place to fail. How would you say Puerto Vallarta is a city on the west coast of Mexico? This is a hard one.
Puerto Vallarta es la ciudad en la Costa Oeste de México.
I really like it, and that's an important lesson for everybody. Go forward with swagger, go forward with confidence. Puerto Vallarta es una ciudad en la costa oeste de México, right? Let's
Okay.
try the next one, Amy. Frontera.
Frontera, border, frontera.
Yeah, good. And then país.
País, country, país.
Yeah, good. This isn't really said very much, but I did try to give this guide a more feminine slant since the language tends to have more masculine dominance to it. We're trying to reverse that trend a little bit. So more often you'd hear mi paisano, but you'll hear more of this, especially now that the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, is a woman. Hopefully there's more of a nationalistic unification of women. Let's try mi paisana.
Mi paisana, my
Oh,
fellow countrywoman. Mi paisana.
nice, good. How would you say, hi, my fellow countrywoman? How are you today?
Hola, mi paisana, ¿cómo está?
Yeah, or ¿cómo estás hoy? How are you
¿Cómo?
today? Try that again. Hola, mi paisana. ¿Cómo estás tú hoy?
Hola, mi paisana, ¿cómo estás tú hoy?
Yeah, good. And the tú being you, we don't need it because estás, como estás already has the tú built in, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
how are you? But we can use that tool, even though it's a touch redundant, right? To add the two. Spanish speakers do it all the time, and it helps us in our early days to give clarity about who we're speaking about. And then remember, hoy is today. Let's try that. Hoy.
Hoy,
How do you
today.
say
Hoy,
yesterday?
ayer,
How do you say tomorrow?
mañana.
Great job, Amy. Okay, let's try the next one. State, estado.
Estado, state, estado.
Yeah. How do you say the United States? Los.
Los Estados Unidos.
Really nice. Yep. The next one, capital, is capital in Spanish, even though they're spelled the same. Let's try capital.
Capital, capital, capital.
Good. Try this sentence, everybody. The capital of Mexico is Mexico City. La capital de México es la Ciudad de México.
La capital de México es la Ciudad de México.
Really nice. Yeah, great job, Amy.
Thanks.
Ciudad, we've talked about various times here. You're out ahead of it. Let's try ciudad.
Ciudad, city, ciudad.
Uh-huh. Then pueblo.
Pueblo, town, pueblo.
It's worth mentioning that there's a major city in Mexico called Pueblo, right? And the people from Pueblo are called poblanos, just like the pepper. Let's try that. Los poblanos de Pueblo.
Los poblanos de pueblo.
Yeah, really nice. Good. All right, cool. Let's practice. Puerto Vallarta is a city on the blank or in the blank of Jalisco. Puerto Vallarta es una ciudad en el
Estado.
de Jalisco. Try that whole sentence, Amy.
Puerto Vallarta es una ciudad en el estado de Jalisco.
Really nice. Yes. And what are the rest on here? What's país again?
Country,
Pueblo
town,
and frontera.
border.
Good. Here's our first real test of our modules here. This is a hard one, but if we can get this, and we can, then you're well on your way to not speaking in single word answers. We want to speak more completely, and this is the type of sentence that helps us do that. Remember, Amy, the comma here, the two commas, they're very important, right, to the success of nailing this sentence, because we're going to have you do it in Spanish, and then we'll have you do it in English.
Okay.
Juárez, en el estado de Chihuahua, es una ciudad en el norte de México que comparte una con los
Frontera,
Estados Unidos. What'd you say?
frontera.
Good, perfect. So go ahead and say the whole passage in Spanish and then work through it with us. What does it mean in English? Let's try it.
Okay. Juárez, en el estado de Chihuahua, es una ciudad en el norte de México que comparte una frontera con los Estados Unidos.
Good. Try it
Well,
in English. And one thing I want to say before you do that is to the people watching at home, we're not always going to know all the words here. But for instance, and maybe Amy will, and maybe she won't know the word comparte, but we'll talk about how we can use the rest of the context of the sentence to deduce meanings. So you don't have to know everything. You got to know enough to help yourself deduce what the other words that you're unfamiliar with are. Take a stab at it, Amy. Let's hear it in English.
all right. Juarez is in the state of Chihuahua. It's a city in the north of Mexico that shares a border with the United States.
Good, right. So shares a border because what do two countries do with a border? They share it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So comparte comes from the verb compartir. Everybody say compartir.
Compartir.
That means to share. And comparte is he or she shares, which is also the form of it shares. Now, Amy, just a little adjustment here. I can't even really tell if you said it this way or saw it this way, but it's Juarez in the state of Chihuahua is a city in the north of Mexico that shares a border, una frontera, con los Estados Unidos, with the United States, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's where the commas come into play with this one. Juarez, comma, in the state of Mexico, or in the state of Chihuahua, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
is a city in the north of Mexico that shares a border with the United States. When people get this wrong, and maybe this happened to you, they tend to think Juarez is in the state of Chihuahua. It is a city in the north of Mexico, but the commas are adding clarity to what we're trying to say there.
Okay.
Good job. Let's advance along. Some more common phrases for us to pick up. Let's try it, Amy. Mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto. Nice to meet you. Mucho gusto.
Good. Yeah, that's nice to meet you. Much likey, I always say, is the more literal translation. Much likey. Nice to meet you. Because gusto tends to come from liking something. Let's try the next one. Me da gusto.
Me da gusto. That makes me glad. Me
Yeah.
da gusto.
Now, the verb da comes from the verb dar. It's to give, D-A-R, to give. But da is he gives, she gives, or it gives. And we're seeing a theme here, right? It, something that's inanimate, is always going to receive the same verb as the subject of he or she. And this is really more like it gives me the likey. So that makes me glad. If you wanted to look for some way to literally translate it. So when we say me da gusto, it gives me the likey. And when would we use that? If someone says, "Oh, I had a great job interview today," then you say, "Oh, me da gusto." Right? We all know this one. Let's hear muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Good.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Yeah, which is really more of a much thanks. Then de nada. Try that. De nada.
De nada. You are welcome. De nada.
Yeah. De nada is interesting because de means of or from, and nada means nothing. So it's like of nothing, which in English is more like think nothing of it, how we say that, right? Of nothing. Think nothing of it. De nada. Let's try the next one. Por favor.
Por favor. Please. Por favor.
Uh-huh. Good. Amy, can you bring your camera up more level with your face there? That'd be good. So, por favor is like out of favor or for favor. So when we say please, we're like, could you do me this favor, por favor, out of favor? How about the next one? ¿Cuánto cuesta?
¿Cuánto cuesta? How much does it cost? ¿Cuánto cuesta?
Yeah, excellent. So the verb to cost is costar, C-O-S-T-A-R. I'll put that in the chat here for us. But that's our way to conjugate that. And that's interesting because we call this, we'll see more of this, but that's a root changer because you see that it's C-O-S-T-A-R. But here when it's how much does it cost, we go to a C-U-E-T-A, cuesta. So, ¿cuánto, how much cuesta, does it cost? The next one we've talked about before, ¿de dónde eres? Let's try that. ¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres? Where are you from?
Yeah,
¿De
there's
dónde
something
eres?
blocking the screen there, Amy. What is that? Your hand, maybe?
Is that better?
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's bouncing though. You're bouncing. Okay,
How's that?
that's good. All right,
Okay.
¿de dónde eres? Where are you from? From where you are, because we talked about the verb ser, to be, and eres is you are. Now, which is permanent, which is temporary? Is ser permanent or temporary?
That's permanent.
And estar is temporary, right?
Right.
Just to remind us, when we use ser, and conversely, when we're using eres, or consequently, I should say, when we're using eres, that's a permanent thing because where you are from, you opt for the permanent. Remember that in Spanish, there's two ways to say to be, and one is permanent,
Mhm.
ser, the other is temporary, estar. And there's a whole list of verbs with those, so it's not just to be, but it's I am, you are, he is, she is, right? Yo soy,
Mhm.
tú eres, él es, right? And then the other
Right.
one, estoy, I am at the beach, estoy en la playa. How are you? These are temporary things. They come from estar. ¿Cómo estás? And then like, ¿dónde está el baño? Where is the bathroom, right?
Hmm. Right.
Now that's an interesting one, ¿dónde está el baño? Because you could probably make the argument that it could use permanent language, but when we use locations like that, right, we tend to use estar. Let's try this one, which is your name? And it's really how we would say, what is your name? So sometimes the white here, the English is not literal, but this would be, which is your name? Which is one way that a Spanish speaker would say, what is your name? Let's try it, Amy. ¿Cuál es tu nombre?
¿Cuál es tu nombre? What
Right.
is your
Notice,
name?
good. Notice that, and I'll let you do the three. I just been cutting you off a little bit. I'm sorry. But notice that the tu nombre, we talked about possessive language, your name, right?
Hmm.
Tu nombre. And how would you respond to that, Amy? My name is Amy.
Mi nombre es Amy.
Mi nombre
Mi
es
nombre
Amy.
is Amy.
Es.
Es.
Try it again. Mi nombre es Amy.
Mi nombre es Amy.
Yeah, you remember how to say Amy in Spanish?
Aime.
Aime. Good. All right. Now, this more common way down below here is how we say, what is your name? But it's really saying, how do you call yourself? Let's try it. ¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
Good.
How do you call yourself? ¿Cómo te llamas?
Yeah, excellent. So, llamar is to call. In fact, we are right now on a video llamada. Try the word video llamada.
Video llamada.
That's a video call, right? And
Hmm.
when we say como te llamas, notice that llamar is the verb, but just like the rules we've been learning with how to change a verb from its perfect form, llamar, to call, to the subject that we're hoping to talk about, it's the same as when you were saying earlier, Amy, hablas español or hablas inglés. That would be,
Hmm.
do you speak English? Hablas with an AS. Llamas, you call. And the te there is to show us how do you call who? How do you call yourself? So what's the response here, Amy? I call myself Amy, or my name is Amy.
Me llamo Amy.
Really nice. Yeah, me llamo Amy. Me llamo Amy. I call myself Amy. And the O's at the end of the verbs usually are talking about yo,
Hmm.
me, I, right?
Hmm.
Good. Okay. How about this next one? This is a great tool for learning Spanish from other Spanish speakers, right? Like if you're visiting
Hmm.
Mexico and you've got a taxi driver that's trying to help you, you can say, ¿Cómo se llama? And then use your finger to point to something. ¿Cómo se llama? And we learned this or that. Let's try, ¿Cómo se llama esto? what do you call this, or how does it call itself? Try, ¿cómo se llama esto?
¿Cómo se llama esto?
¿Cómo
With
se llama esto? Remember, we learned about how there's three ways to say this. One is este, that's for things that are masculine. One is esta, that's for things that are feminine. And esto is a gender neutral word, which is really the most apt word for this sentence because we don't know the gender of the thing that we're talking about because we don't even know what it is. So if you say,
Mhm.
¿Cómo se llama esto? And I'd say, se llama una taza. Se llama una taza. How does it call itself this? ¿Cómo se llama esto? And I could also say, esta, this, because I
Mhm.
know the gender, es una taza. It's a mug. Try that. Esta se llama una taza.
Esta se, esta se llama una taza.
Good, good, good. Perfect. Okay. And then another one that we can use to learn on the fly is como se dice. That red blank there in the guide is a great place to put an English word. So, for instance, you could say, como se dice pencil en español. Try that, Amy. Como se dice pencil en español?
¿Cómo se dice pencil en español?
Then I would respond, se dice lápiz.
Se
Se dice.
dice lápiz.
Good. It says itself. Now, decir is the verb for to say or to tell. So this is not the same as call from above, como se llama, como te llamas. This is using a different word. But como se dice, and then an English word, en español is a very common way for people to continue learning, utilizing other bilingual speakers to guide their learning journey, right? Which I think is super important. Okay, we've worked on this recently in the last lesson, conjugating verbs that end in AR. Remember, there's only AR, ER, and IR ending verbs in Spanish. And we're just trying to get used to applying these specific rules. Then we'll move on to ER and IR verbs, which kind of changes the main key letter, but at the end of the day, the rules are really similar. So this is just a reminder screen of something that we've already seen. And the next screen here is the one that really helps us because it uses an example word. In lesson 4, we were working with hablar, to speak.
Mhm.
Now we're working with caminar, to walk. Amy, go ahead and say caminar.
Caminar,
Uh-huh.
to walk. Caminar.
Yeah. Good. So again, take away the AR and add an O when you want that to be for you. So let's try yo camino todos los días.
Yo camino todos los días.
What does that mean, Amy?
I walk every day,
Yeah,
or I walk each
todos.
day.
Yeah, good. Todos los días is representing all the days, which is one of the ways that we say every day in Spanish. Everybody say todos los días.
Todos los días.
Uh-huh. All the days. And we could say every day is really represented by that concept. There is one more way, and you said it, it's cada día, and that's more of each day. Let's try that. Yo camino cada día.
Yo camino cada día.
Good. How would you say I walk to the beach each day?
Yo camino. Voy a la playa cada día.
Yo camino a la playa cada día.
Yo camino a la playa cada día.
Good. Sounds good. All right. How would you say with the next one? We're taking away the AR, adding as. How would you say, do you walk a lot?
¿Tú caminas mucho?
Uh-huh. ¿Tú caminas mucho?
¿Tú caminas mucho?
Good, excellent. And so that's the endings for the to form. Remember that to means you, right?
Mhm.
Él or ella. And today we're introducing this third form. Remember, this is also where anything inanimate comes from, takes this verb form here, he or she. But today we're addressing that in Spanish, there's a formal way to speak to someone. So tú up above is very casual. That's usually the type of language you would use between friends, which is why Amy and I are using it here today. But
Mhm.
when you want to communicate great respect, you can use usted. Everybody say usted.
Usted.
Good.
Usted.
That's not the same as something we've already been working with, which is ustedes. Ustedes is you all. Try that. Ustedes, you all.
Us- Ustedes. You all.
Good.
Ustedes.
Perfect. So that's a group of you and the others. But usted is just Spanish has this way to address someone with respect. We have things like that in English, like more formal language, sir or ma'am. But this is really a verb form that can be manipulated to show in the verbs that you're choosing that you're not choosing to be casual, that you want to respect someone. And that's usted. So if we use usted, for instance, we might say, usted camina mucho. And that's still saying what Amy told us above. Tu caminas mucho is, do you walk a lot? Tu caminas mucho. But if I say, usted camina mucho, that's me speaking to my taxi driver who's 75 and getting close to retiring in Puerto Vallarta, right? I say, do you walk a lot? Usted. He's 75. He's older than me. He's my taxi driver. We're not friends. I want to communicate with him more formally and respectfully. Try that, Amy. Usted camina mucho.
Usted camina mucho.
And then using that same verb there, how would you say she walks a lot?
Ella camina mucho.
Yeah, good. That sound like a question, and it doesn't have to be, right? It could just
Mhm.
be the actual use of the verb. So let's see. I'm trying to get this one tab out of here, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to. Okay, so there's two more forms here. One of them is the nosotros form, right? That's we. Let's try nosotros caminamos.
Nosotros caminamos. We
Yeah,
walk.
really, really nice. We walk. How would you say we walk to the beach each day to follow our example?
Nosotros caminamos a la playa cada día.
Yeah, really nice. Nosotros caminamos a la playa cada día. Try that at home. And then the last one, ellos, ellas, o ustedes, that's our subject. There are two different things. Ellos and ellas, those are together. They represent they. Hopefully, we remember that ellos would be they, a group of men, or a mixed group. Ellas would be they, a group of women, they or them, right? And then ustedes is representing the you all. So these last forms here, where it's caminan, endings being an, for verbs that end in AR can take on two different subjects, really. Ellos or ellas, that's they or them, or ustedes, which is you all, which is not the same as they or them, right? So,
Mhm.
how would you say, do you all walk a lot, Amy?
Ustedes caminan mucho.
Ustedes caminan mucho.
Ustedes caminan mucho.
Good. Let's celebrate because this AR ending work that we've done here is our way to now understand a bit more about how estar was conjugated, right? Why did we use estar and work with that verb before we started learning about how to conjugate verbs that end in AR? Because estar is so commonly used. So it was worth it for us to try to get that down in the earliest of days with our lessons. But now we can see the endings because estar really is an AR verb kind of coming in and factoring in here. There is a little bit of a difference because in the first form, for instance, if it was following the rules, it'd be yo esto. So sometimes there's little deviations like that, and we just have to memorize those. So, for instance, if someone says, tú cómo estás, they're saying, you, how are you? Right? Tú cómo estás? And you'd say, yo estoy bien, gracias. Try that. Amy, tú cómo estás?
Yo estoy bien, gracias.
Good, perfect. And we can see the AS ending just like we did with caminas, just like we did with hablas. That's tú estás. Let's try, Amy.
Mhm.
Where are you? Tú dónde estás?
¿Tú dónde estás?
Great, perfect. Then the third form there, look at that. Él or ella, he or she. Now we know the usted. Remember that this is the form of something that's inanimate or it. So we've used this example many times, but ¿dónde está el baño? Where is the bathroom? ¿Dónde está el baño, Amy?
¿Dónde está el baño?
Uh-huh. We could say, el baño está allí. The bathroom is over there. Try that. El baño está allí.
El baño está allí. The
Good.
bathroom is over
Allí.
there.
Good. There. Allí. And we know aquí is here.
Mm-hmm.
Allá is like way over there. Try that. El baño está
Allá.
allá.
¿Dónde está allá?
El baño está allá.
El baño está allá.
Uh-huh. Or the bathroom is here, really close. That's acá.
Acá.
Uh-huh. El baño está acá.
El baño está acá.
Yep, good. And acá is way close, super here. Allá is way far, super over there. Allí is there, like está allí, it's over there. And aquí is probably the one that most people know here. So let's try estoy aquí. I'm here.
Estoy aquí.
Good, yeah. Amy, your camera is bouncing so much. I don't know, what you got it in your hand or something like that?
Yeah, and I'm resting it on my knee.
Okay. So here's what we want to do is we're trying for 45-minute lessons. So sometimes we will cover one module before that time is over. And so what we want to do in that circumstance is we want to go and try for more content in the next module. The goal here isn't a module per course. Sometimes that will happen, but the real goal is more to do 45 minutes of lesson each time. So what we want to do now is we want to go and get back over to the guide homepage. So we go back to our homepage, and I'm going to start the share of the screen again so we can restart the process and go over to the online guide. And we're looking at A6. You'll notice that in A6, we're starting also with more vocab that's related to geography or directions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the same thing that we were doing before when we talked geography and vocab, where we're doing Spanish, English, Spanish. So let's start with the first one. I used to say this wrong. I used to say el océano, but it's really el océano. And there might even be an accent that's missing on the E of it. But let's try that. El océano.
El océano.
No.
No.
El océano.
Océano.
Good. The reason that that's kind of important is because the word ano is anus or butthole.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say ano anytime, sometimes people, for instance, mess up and say feliz cumpleaños, and that is happy completing of the buttholes, right? So be careful with the word
Right.
ano. You can see the relationship with anus there, and that's the last we'll
Mm-hmm.
reference it. But now that you know that, now that the stakes are high, let's try one more time, Amy. El océano.
El océano.
No. El océano.
Océano.
No.
No.
El océano.
Océano. El océano.
No. Now try it fast. El océano.
El océano.
Good. That's good. Perfect. And that's a word for the ocean. However, and that's a good example, Amy, you're helping people understand that you can mess up and mess up and mess up, but the important thing is to keep at it, keep trying to get the repetition right, right? So that's a great, valuable lesson for everybody that's watching this video, is that we're not always going to be expected to know how to pronounce a word right away. The vowel consistency certainly helps us in that journey, but it's really important to fail, pick yourself back up, fail again, and just keep trying it until you get it, right? And then hopefully we'll remember with that verb in particular, or sorry, that word in particular. But also, I think it's my fault mostly because there's probably supposed to be an accent on the E there. El océano.
El océano.
Good. And then let's try the next one, which is actually the word that a Spanish speaker uses more so to talk about the ocean anyway. This is the people's word. They say the sea. Let's try el mar.
El mar. The sea. El mar.
Yeah. Good. Let's try el mar Pacífico.
El mar Pacífico.
El mar Atlántico.
El mar Atlántico.
Good. How about the next one? La montaña. La montaña.
La montaña. The mountain. La montaña.
How would you make that plural, Amy, and say the mountains?
Las montañas.
Yeah, really nice. Good adjustment on the fly there. Las montañas. How would you say the mountains of Colorado?
Las montañas de Colorado.
Good, really nice. How would you say the mountains of Arizona?
Las montañas de Arizona.
Really nice. Yeah, good. All right, the river, El Rio. We know this one from El Rio Grande, which most times people in the United States, they sort of butcher that. We say the Rio Grande, but it's really El Rio Grande. Let's try El Rio.
El Rio. The river. El Rio.
Good. And a good time to remember something that we talked about recently as well in previous lessons is that when a word starts with R, feel free to embellish that R as if it was a double R and you can curl away with it. It's not really necessary, so someone could say El Rio, but it's just so much more fun when you get that down and you say El Rio, El Rio.
El Rio.
Yeah, good. El Lago is the lake. Try that, Amy. El Lago.
El lago. The lake. El lago.
Perfect. Yeah. And then we have the desert, El Desierto.
El desierto. The desert. El desierto.
Good. Yeah. So, in English, how desert and dessert are spelled very similarly. Let's try the dessert is el postre. So it's not like that in Spanish. This is the dessert, el postre.
El postre. El postre.
And then pastel is cake. Let's try pastel.
Pastel. Cake.
Yeah.
Pastel.
Good, good. Perfect. Okay, we know that big is grande and large would be largo. Let's try grande.
Grande. Big. Grande.
Let's try the big river, El Rio Grande.
El Rio Grande.
Nice, good. Now let's try the large lake. But before we do that, remember that in Spanish, it's not large lake, it's lake large, that their adjective and noun relationships are reversed. Now, I should mention that that is something that can evolve and is evolving and can change as Spanish and English, especially between the United States and Mexico that share such a culture and a border, they're also evolving a new form of language. And one of the things that's happening is you'll see that switching in Spanish of now instead of, for instance, a large lake, which would technically be El Lago Largo, the large lake, someone might say El Largo Lago, right? The large lake, and that's making it more like English, though the words being used are still Spanish. Let's try it though, Amy. El Lago Largo.
El lago largo.
Yeah, good. Now we've seen a couple words on here, el mar and lago. So we unfortunately know Mar-a-Lago. What do you think Mar-a-Lago means?
The sea of the lake, or the lake in the sea.
Yeah, and it's really sea to lake. So it's basically a transition point where the sea becomes a lake. Mar-a-Lago would be sea to lake, right? Good.
Okay.
And then let's see, pequeño would be little or small. Let's try pequeño.
Pequeño, little, pequeño.
Yeah, so we might say el niño pequeño, the little child, right? Try that, el niño pequeño.
El niño pequeño.
And that's an example of something that can be changed with gender. So it could be la niña pequeña. Try that, la niña pequeña.
La niña pequeña.
Good.
Little girl.
Yeah. And then tiny is really the one that's chiquito. There's a word that's kind of missing here, which would be chico or chica. That's kind of more like small. And when we order a coffee, we say, Yo quiero un café chico, por favor. A small coffee. Try that, Amy. Yo quiero un café chico, por favor.
Yo quiero café chico, por favor.
We need a un café chico, por favor.
Un café chico, por favor.
Yeah,
Yo
good.
quiero.
Yeah. And then if that's small, then chiquito is really tiny. So how would you say the little tiny lake?
El chiquito lago.
Good. And that's more that new version of the language that we're talking about, but really be a lago chiquito, right?
El lago chiquito.
Yeah. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying that you're ahead of the curve, right? Because that is happening a lot in Spanish. Let's try the next one, distancia.
Distancia.
Yeah, remember that all I's sound like the I in Latino, so they're always E. So this is distancia.
Distancia.
Try it again.
Distancia. Distancia.
Good, yeah. Then car is carro.
Carro.
Yeah,
Carro.
yeah, good. If we wanted to say a new car, we'd say un carro nuevo. Try that.
Un carro nuevo.
Perfect, yeah. Then bus. The word really for bus is autobus. Let's try autobus.
Autobus.
But in Mexico, you'll often hear it as camión, even though the word camión really does mean truck, right? Let's try the word camión.
Camión.
Good.
Camión. Bus.
Yeah, and camioneta is like how you'd say a little truck, like a pickup truck. Let's try camioneta.
Camioneta.
And then there's this fun one in the chat here, which is more like a semi. It's kind of a really odd word, but I like it. Semi-remolque.
Semi-remolque.
Yeah, good.
That's a hard one to say.
Yeah, it is. There's not a lot of trains in Mexico, but Claudia really wants to put an emphasis on passenger train development there. Let's try the word tren.
Tren. Train. Tren.
Yeah, good. And to make that plural, you'd actually add an ES. So let's try trenes.
Trenes. Trains. Trenes.
Good. And then airplane is avión.
Avión. Airplane. Avión.
Yeah, good. You can see the AV is like aviation. So there are things like that, and we've talked about that, where it makes the relationship between the English and Spanish a little bit more easy to think about when we have those words that sort of bridge in the Latin shared root, right? A couple examples with that is ave would be the word for bird. Try ave.
Ave. Bird.
Yeah, and I think Ave Maria would be Maria bird, right? Ave Maria.
Ave Maria.
There's another word that people use for bird, which is pájaro, but you can see that pájaro does seem more like parrot, right?
Pájaro.
And then avión is airplane, but volar is the verb for to fly. Volar, try that.
Volar.
Yeah. And then vuelo is the word for flight. Vuelo.
Vuelo. Is that how Volaris got its name?
Yes, it is. So volaris took from volar, and now all Spanish speaker know that they can fly, right? With volaris.
Right.
Good. Okay, let's just spend 2 more minutes here working with these last of our AR verbs to really drill that in, because then after this particular video and this particular lesson, we will see AR ending verbs and we'll be using them in full sentence practice. But this is the last time that we'll teach to reinforce this idea. Why do we keep doing that? Because the rules here are the thing that matters. Understanding that verbs that end in AR, we don't have to know all of them to know what they would be. We have to remember the rules that we've been seeing again and again to apply. Descansar, let's try that, Amy, is to rest. Descansar.
Descansar.
Yeah, good. People also in Spanish use this as the way to communicate what their day off might be. And we're going to do that especially here. Let's try yo descanso los lunes, which would be
Yo,
I rest on Mondays or my day off are Mondays.
yo descanso
Los lunes.
los lunes. I was trying to think of the los lunes.
Yeah, yo descanso los lunes. I rest Mondays, right?
Hmm.
Then that's the O ending, right? So the AR is taken away, and we got the O there. We've worked with hablar to speak, and we've seen that hablo is I speak. Yo hablo español. We worked with caminar, which is to walk. We say I walk a lot. Yo camino mucho. So when you see these O endings with verbs, you want to think me, yo, right? And again, just to remind you, that doesn't have anything to do with gender because gender is for nouns, people, places, things. These are rules for verbs. So it will always be yo descanso. If you say descansa, thinking, oh, I'm a woman, I should say descansa. Notice there at the bottom that that actually changes the whole meaning of the verb. That makes it he rests or she rests, right? Or we've learned the usted, the formal you rest. Let's try the question, Amy. When do you rest? Which we could say, what is your day off? ¿Cuándo descansas? Or tú, ¿cuándo descansas?
¿Tú cuándo descansas? When do you rest? What's your day off?
Yeah,
¿Tú
good.
cuándo descansas?
Yo descanso los lunes. I rest on Mondays. So good dialogue there. ¿Cuándo tú descansas? Or tú cuándo descansas? Yo descanso los lunes. Now, the
Yo
he, she
descanso
form
los
is
lunes.
él or ella and usted. So, how would you say he rests on Wednesdays, Amy?
Él descansa los miércoles.
Nice, really nice. Él descansa los miércoles. The last two here. Nosotros descansamos en la
Nos-
tarde. We rest in the afternoon. Let's try it, Amy. Nosotros descansamos en la tarde.
Nosotros descansamos en las tardes.
En la tarde.
En la tarde.
Yeah, and that's not the most important part. You got the important part right. Nosotros descansamos. Notice in the nosotros form, we. You take away the AR and add amos, and what you get there is we rest, right? That's the same as nosotros hablamos español or nosotros caminamos mucho, like we've been working with. And then the very last one, ellos, ellas. Who's ellos and ellas, Amy? What's that subject?
That's a group of men or a group of women. Or mix.
Yes, but
Or they.
they. The answer
They.
is they or them. And then
Mhm.
ustedes. Who's ustedes?
Y'all.
Yep, y'all or you all.
You
So
all.
let's ask, when do you all rest or when is y'all's day off?
¿Cuándo ustedes descansan?
Yeah, kind of. That is right, but you want to order those words a little bit differently.
Okay.
Ustedes cuando descansan or cuando descansan ustedes.
¿Cuándo descansan ustedes?
Yeah, really nice.
Okay.
Good job. So here's another one that's cocinar. That's to cook. We're just going to practice these quick sentences here. Cocinar is to cook, and if we want to say I cook eggs each day, try it, Amy. Yo cocino huevos cada día.
Yo cocino huevos cada día.
I cook eggs each day.
Mhm.
¿Tú cocinas bien? Do you cook well? Try that.
¿Tú cocinas bien?
Yeah, good. In the guide here, you don't see the two, but remember, you can have the two. The Spanish speaker does that, even though it's redundant, and it's very important and helps us in our early days of clarifying who we're speaking about, right? Then let's try, she cooks in the morning, the bottom example there. Ella cocina en las mañanas. She cooks in the mornings.
Ella cocina en las mañanas.
Uh-huh. Let's try, Amy, las mañanas.
Las mañanas.
Good. Then the last one here, the nosotros form. Nosotros cocinamos pescado los viernes.
Nosotros cocinamos pescados los viernes.
Uh-huh.
We cook fish on Fridays.
Yeah, perfect. Yep, pescado is the word for fish, and viernes, Fridays. So we cook fish los Fridays, los viernes. And I put the N there in parentheses because it could be en los viernes, on Fridays, right? And then the last one is saying, do you all, it's a question, cook potatoes on the stove or in the oven, en la estufa o en el horno? So the sentence would be, ¿Ustedes cocinan papas en la estufa o en el horno?
Ustedes cocinan papas en la estufa o en el horno.
Yeah, good. Really nice, Amy. Do you all cook potatoes? We know papas and papas fritas, French fries or fried potatoes. And let's try the word, Amy, la estufa.
La estufa.
That's the stove. And then let's try el horno.
El horno.
Yeah, good. That's the oven. And good job not pronouncing the H. Remember, H's are not pronounced in Spanish. That's going to be where we leave off. So lesson 6 is going to start with different vocab here, and it will already be progressed into A6 on the guide. Amy, so glad that you could join us tonight for lessons, and thanks for helping us create a video that will help other people into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say linda noche. Have a pleasant evening.
Linda noche.
A ti también. To you as well. Linda noche, Amy. And gracias a todos. We're getting deep into our lessons here. That's lesson number 5. And hopefully you enjoy the video that we made for you to learn. Look below for the additional notes as well. And everybody say adios.
Adios.
Adios.